And here we go again. Welcome, everybody, to Beyond Mount Rushmore, the history you didn't know you needed.
That's right. And we were talking about that before we started the broadcast here, is that so many people, I've read emails and texts and all that stuff. People say, how come you didn't mention this about the president? Or how come you didn't? We are just giving you a brief background on a president and then telling you a story.
Right. This is not biographical presidential history like you would get in school.
Right.
This is stuff you won't hear in school.
Correct. And usually on one main topic, some oddity, some strange thing.
Right, exactly. By the way, the voice you just heard besides me was Stan Nawalonic, our self-proclaimed presidential historian.
Hi, everybody. Who are we talking about today?
I'm Jeff Hickox, if that didn't matter.
Didn't you intro yourself?
No, I was talking about the presidents, and then you went off on a tangent.
Oh. Hi, Jeff.
Hi. And by the way, that's your job.
What?
Who we're talking about today.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Grover Cleveland. Now, this is going to be one part of talking about Grover Cleveland.
Right.
He was a pretty boring president. I'm going to tell you.
In some ways.
Let's put it, his presidential stuff was boring.
Mm-hmm.
Him as a man and a human being, very interesting. We're only going to tackle one today, maybe later on down the line, something far more sinister.
Right. Dichotomy would be a good word for him.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you know? And I always like when we start the show off, you throw a few tidbits our way. What do you know about Grover Cleveland?
Well, he was the first president to serve non-consecutive terms.
That's
like
right.
President Trump.
Yep.
Tariffs were a big deal.
They were.
During the election.
It's
like
one of the reasons
here.
why he lost to Benjamin Harrison and then got reelected, but then a terrible depression came in 1893, which pretty much ruined his second term.
It did. And then also he intervened in the Pullman strikes, which was a railway strike, and he actually set federal troops in to break up the strike, which was a big deal then.
Oh, it was
It kind of changed
really
the way
deal.
the government handles strikes from that point forward.
Mm-hmm.
He also loved to veto. 414 vetoes. He's more than anybody else.
All right.
And, well, this is really presidential history, but the Babe Ruth candy bar.
Oh, the Baby Ruth bar?
Named after his daughter.
Yeah, and I've heard so many different stories about that, but I guess it's not named after Babe Ruth.
Right.
It's named after Grover
Because
Cleveland's
of the timing,
daughter.
because of the timing of when he was president, when the bar came out. Yep. There you go. And he was also married in the White House.
Okay. Well, when we tell the story today of Grover Cleveland, I will, in passing, mention his marriage in the White House.
Uh-oh.
To a child bride he knew. Let's.
Ouch. Okay.
I don't know if I should include this in the other, but this one I'll just add because this is while he was president.
It may fit in the other one, but I think you can go either way with it.
They'll fit in both.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one last thing.
Yeah.
And it was common in the time, but he actually paid someone to serve in the Civil War.
A lot of people did that. A lot of people of wealth did that in the Civil War. He was one of them.
Yeah. None of that's why we're talking today.
No, none of it. And we're not going to talk about his incredible size, which is probably why he didn't want to fight in the Civil War. Big as a house. Grover Cleveland, as you pointed out, the 22nd and 24th president of the United States. His terms, 1885 to 1889, and then 1893 to 1897. Little footnote that we were discussing, again, before we started recording this, was when Benjamin Harrison, who's the president that's in between Cleveland's two terms, was president, Grover Cleveland ran against him, and he did not lose the popular vote to Benjamin Harrison, as so many races in recent history do away with the electoral. It has gone on for ages.
150 years.
Cleveland won the popular vote. Benjamin Harrison won the Electoral College by a lot.
Right.
And thus Benjamin Harrison became the 23rd president of the United States. So it's nothing new.
And the two ran against each other 3 consecutive times?
Actually 2 times. The first time Cleveland won, and it was the second and third campaigns that Benjamin Harrison ran against him.
Okay.
Now, let's get into a little bit about Grover Cleveland. We told you his 2 terms. Born March 18th, 1837, Caldwell, New Jersey. He had a meteoric rise to prominence. He was the mayor of Buffalo and then became governor of New York. And this will be something we discuss in another podcast. But he was popular because America viewed him as an honest man.
Correct, yeah.
His honesty, because he admitted to the birth of a child out of wedlock before the campaign started, and America said, this is a man we can trust. Here he is admitting to America he's an honest man.
And there's a whole lot more to that.
If you open that, and we're gonna
open that can of worms.
It's a mess.
Yeah.
It's a complete mess. Let's talk about his marriage in the White House.
Yeah, let's do that.
He waited until he was 49 to get married.
49?
He was 49.
Jeez.
The first 15 months of his presidency, his first term, he had no. He was a single man. I believe his sister ran the White House. He married 21-year-old Frances Folsom.
He was 49.
He was 49.
She was 21.
Yes.
Okay.
There's more to that. While she was essentially his child bride, 49, him, her, 21, he had known her for quite some time. You see, he had supervised her upbringing since adolescence.
Oh.
When she was 10, 11 years old, I want to say either the father died or the parents died, but he was put in charge of her upbringing. So as an 11-year-old, he knew her very well and made sure she had everything she needed. And then, they were friendly, and then he marries her at 21.
More than friendly.
Yeah. They had 5 children.
It's a little jeepers. It's a little sticky right there, Stan.
Yes. Yep. By the way, while we're at it, and we're talking about Cleveland and stuff, you want to hear what Grover Cleveland sounded like?
Absolutely.
Then we'll get into more detail about him and listen to that. And that's a bad recording. I only got a little bit of it.
Right.
But he's got a friends.
He's got that same from that time frame from the.
My friends, we shall declare that this nation is to legislate for its own people on every question without waiting for the aid or consent of any other nation on earth. Upon that issue, we expect to carry every single state in this union.
It's hard to understand that, but just the intonation, the way they talk, it always. I don't know why it reminds me of that little character on the Monopoly board. Like that's what.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You are absolutely correct.
Yeah.
That is how it is. That's how I picture him as well. Okay, so we tell you 2 non-consecutive terms, married a child in the White House.
No.
5 children. You know what I mean.
I do.
And when we do the other podcast about him, then you'll really know what we mean.
Yeah.
But that's in the future. His first term, much more successful, as I pointed out, than his second term.
Right.
That was because of the Panic of 1893, which was the worst economic depression America had up until that time, and it's only compared to the Great Depression of the 1930s. We spiraled out of control.
So considered worse or not as bad, but
not as bad. But at that
time,
it was horrible.
It was nothing worse.
Yep.
Right, gotcha.
Early on in his second term, 1893,
yeah,
he wanted to seek the advice. This is now where we're getting into our story.
Okay.
He wanted to seek the advice of the White House doctor. The doctor's name, Dr. Robert O'Reilly. He said he had a soreness, tenderness on the roof of his mouth. And upon examination and looking into Cleveland's mouth, the doctor noticed a crater-like edge ulcer on the left side of Cleveland's hard palate, the roof of his mouth.
Right.
Huh. They took a biopsy, and there was a growth there.
Right.
Deemed at the time to be cancer. There's debate on whether it was precancerous, malignant, or benign, but they determined it was growing. It was cancer.
It's kind of funny. I never think of not funny. I never think of cancer back in those days. I thought that was always a modern thing, but I guess they had it back then too. And they were able to determine that it was cancer. It's actually,
yes, they were able to go and determine it.
1893.
Yes.
Wow.
Let me also tell you about 1893. Cancer was well known. They had the microscope. They could analyze. They could do a biopsy. You say the word in 1893, cancer.
Right.
It's a death sentence.
Right.
And they knew it was it was like, say, in the late 80s and early 90s, you said AIDS. If you knew somebody that had AIDS, it was a death sentence then.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah. Now you take a pill.
And with cancer today, if treated, caught early, the right treatment, you can recover from cancer. Back then,
no.
Death sentence.
Right.
So the biopsy comes back. There's a growth here. We're going to have to do something about this. What are we going to do? Do we tell the nation? What do we do?
Right. Yeah.
Cleveland decided to have surgery.
Okay.
Secretly and not tell anybody.
Okay. That's
a scandal.
Right. That's not a good option. I mean, that's...
He didn't want to, obviously, the country's in a depression.
Right.
They find out he has cancer. What's that going to happen if the president of the United States is dying?
Maybe could cause more panic.
Correct.
Right.
Cleveland decided to have the surgery secretly. The surgery for this cancer, listen carefully, this cancer on the roof of his mouth, a large tumor, was conducted on July 1st, 1893.
What hospital can they go to without not knowing?
No hospital.
Oh, okay. The White House?
No. It was announced that the president was going to go on a vacation. He's taking some time off. He's going to go on a cruise. Cleveland and his surgeon, Dr. Joseph Bryant, left for New York, and six surgeons, S-I-X, surgeons, were sworn to secrecy. You do not tell anybody what we're doing. You do, you talk, will ruin your career.
Right, yeah.
And I'm going to give you one example later on.
Down.
They did ruin someone's career because of it.
Okay. Is he the reason we know about this?
Partially, yes.
Okay.
They took Cleveland on his buddy's boat. It was a yacht, the Oneida. It was a yacht owned by Cleveland's friend, and it sailed off of Long Island. Just floated around out there. Had a nice little ride out in Long Island.
Didn't go anywhere.
No, up and down.
Yeah. Long Island.
Yeah. The surgery, these surgeons are doing this on a boat.
I know, the boat's rocking. How are you?
Nobody knows about it. Six surgeons and his surgeon sworn to secrecy. They conducted the surgery through the president's mouth. They wanted to avoid as few scars as possible or any other signs of surgery, so this was all going to be done through the mouth. They sedated Cleveland with nitrous oxide and ether and performed the surgery. I'm going to play you a clip right now of an author. His name is Matthew Algeo. He has a phenomenal book out now entitled The President is a Sick Man.
We'll put that on the Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah.
A great book that tells you much more about this. But here is what Matthew Algeo says they did on that yacht and how they kept it from the public.
In about 90 minutes, they removed most of his upper left palate, 5 teeth, and a good part of his upper left jaw as well. It was pretty radical surgery for the time. What they did is they managed to keep the press at bay. They kept them at a distance from his home until the wound was healed well enough. It took about 3 weeks.
Took about 3 weeks just to have the stitches and the wound heal. They say that the size of the tumor was so large after they removed it. They looked at the president. They thought they were going to hide from the scars. And
Right.
His mouth was totally disfigured. Totally. His face was deformed. He had a hole on the side of his mouth.
Oh.
He had no roof of the mouth.
Right, yeah, and part of his left jaw was gone.
Yep.
That's not going to look normal.
He needed to have another surgery. And that secondary surgery, again, unknown to anybody,
Right.
was to go and fit him with an internal and external prosthesis
Okay.
because he couldn't talk right because he was disfigured, had a hole on the side of his face.
Yeah. You need your upper palate to work your tongue to talk.
He didn't have that. He was fitted with a hard rubber dental prosthesis because he had the big bushy mustache.
Yeah.
And he could put that in his mouth and have the big bushy mustache hang over all the corner of his mouth and internal into the mouth, push his jaw out a little bit, push the loose skin away, make him look like he was fat again. It's true.
Okay, I believe you.
So he was fitted with this dental prosthesis. He could insert it into his mouth. It would correct his speech. It would make his appearance look like he was normal again.
Wow, they did a good job then if it worked.
They had to do a cover story for the second surgery when they fitted him with the prosthesis.
Yeah.
They just said he had a toothache and they removed a couple of teeth.
Sure.
Rumors, now I told you, 6 surgeons sworn to secrecy.
Yes.
Rumors arose about what was really going on. Reporters were beginning to ask questions. One reporter, his name is meaningless, so I'm not even going to bring it. There was a reporter
Okay.
who got a hold of one of the doctors, and the doctors talked. One of the doctors,
Yes.
one. And this reporter wrote a story about it. Much like we read today, this stuff is nothing new. The White House discredited that reporter,
Yeah.
said it was a bunch of lies.
Fake news.
Yeah, fake news. That's a deep fake.
Right.
And totally discredit him. Nobody other than those surgeons and that one reporter who had his career ruined
Yeah.
knew about what happened. Cleveland's cabinet didn't know anything about it. He just went on a cruise. He was taking a vacation. Congress didn't know about it.
Man.
The public didn't know about it.
No.
This secret, with the exception of that one reporter, was kept secret for 24 years until one of the surviving doctors published a report 9 years after Cleveland passed away.
Gotcha. It was safe.
It was safe. So 24 years after the surgery, 9 years after Cleveland dies.
Incredible.
They finally let the story come out that he had major cancer surgery to his face.
And they got it all, I guess, because he lived quite a long time. I mean, considering...
Here is the amazing thing.
Yeah.
And you're right. He made a full and complete recovery.
1893, Stan.
With no reoccurrence of cancer, the tumor, nothing.
Wow.
This is what, you look at medical science today.
Yeah.
This was, like you pointed out, 1893. They removed it.
Gone.
Never came back. Except he lived with a false face.
Well, yes.
I mean, can you imagine going before the public, having to put this in your mouth, tuck it under your mustache? You know what? There are pictures of him.
Afterwards?
After you can't tell.
I'm gonna.
You can look at it and you would never know anything happened to him.
I'm gonna grab some and put them on the Facebook page so people can see it.
He did become ill in the autumn of 1907. He fell seriously ill, but again, not because of the cancer.
Yeah.
In 1908, he suffered a heart attack and died on June 24th, 1908, at the age of 71.
24 years after his cancer
Yes,
surgery.
sir. He lived a full, complete life. His child bride, Frances, who was 21, he supervised her as an adolescent.
Right, child bride.
Yeah, and then at 21, he married 5 kids. She lived until the age of 83.
Oh, wow.
She passed away in 1947.
Right around World War II.
Yep, right after World War II.
Huh.
And thus, you have the story of Grover Cleveland's false face.
That is an incredible story. It's also incredible the link between the current situation we have in the White House in the last couple of elections and Grover Cleveland's.
Yeah.
You know? And
two different outcomes.
Correct. And when the cover up as well of Biden and his issues.
Yeah.
And then Grover Cleveland and his issues.
What amazes me, Jeff, is that because we have so many media outlets, because there is so much on the internet, so much on television, so much on our tablets, we're all shocked. Oh, this is not democracy.
Yeah.
This has been going on as part of American politics since the beginning of time.
Right. Since the beginning of this country.
That's
for
right.
Sure. Yeah. That is something else. That is Grover Cleveland's false face.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Thanks for listening. In a couple of weeks, we're going to tackle an interesting subject. I'm not going to tell the name right now, but everybody knows the name. And even in modern day, you would know who I'm talking about. The first lady. And
not what we think it is?
Not Martha Washington.
Okay.
But you know who it is. The first lady. That's in 2 weeks.
All right. That sounds good. We'll see everybody in 2 weeks.
That's right.
This has been Beyond Mount Rushmore. I am Jeff Hickox. This is Stan Nawalanik, our self-proclaimed presidential historian.
That's right. Thank you, Jeff. And again, you can get this wherever you get your podcasts. And I'm going to say this right now because I'm a little proud of it. We've been doing this for a couple of months, and we're already nationally rated. We're showing up on the national charts. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
That's exciting, I guess.
Kind of. Big deal.